So my first big boy job was in education, and then I worked in education for about 8 years, and then I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And so at 31 years old, I retired. And it was heaven. I recommend it to all of you. And so I was retired, and in my retirement, I kind of just like did some side hustles, and I would find myself doing dog sitting, house sitting. I became a cater waiter. I still do that every once in a while. Like I'd make a little bit of money producing comedy shows, but I was just doing fine, just doing the side hustle, no day job. It was really wonderful. And in that spirit, my buddy posted that his company was hiring a whole bunch of seasonal workers. And I was like, this is it, great. I looked into it, it worked out. And it was this company called USA Military Metals. And it was USAM for short. And it's this weirdo company in Milwaukee, Oregon, that makes anything and everything that could go on a military uniform of all branches. And so I'm like, patches, accoutrement, I'm like anything and everything in this giant warehouse. And it's one of only 2 civilian companies that do these for the military. And it just happens to be in Milwaukee, Oregon. And they have to hire an army of seasonal employees to get through the work that comes through because of all the military balls where everybody has to update like their uniform and has to look perfect. And so there's about 40 people that work in the warehouse, like doing all the stuff that they do, but they'll hire about 40 more. So like for 2 months, they double the amount of employees are there because of how much work is being ordered. And when I applied and interviewed for the job, I was kind of scared to work there because I kind of checked it out or whatever. And it was kind of the demographics of the people that worked there. And I mean, we're in Milwaukee, Oregon, okay? And so about 60% of the people that work there are just like rough and tumble, Milwaukee, Oregon, just whiskey tango, just the scum of the earth, okay? There's some GEDs walking around. There's some suspicious facial acne. Like, is that meth? I don't know. There's a guy with like a hat that says brotherhood. I don't know what that means. I'm scared. And that's like just 60%. I mean, because they're a big employer in Milwaukee, Oregon. And like a lot of them are driving in from far places. Like Milwaukee's like the big city. And like that's scary too. And I didn't really have anything to worry about, and we'll get to that in a second. So like 60% of the people, just Milwaukee weirdos. And then the next 20% is ex-military. Like they got out of the service, honorable or dishonorable, didn't matter, and like they just couldn't hang, okay? And they're like, have to find something that makes sense. And so they come into this like place. There was this one just meathead who his story was he got out of the service and just started hanging out at this warehouse. And it's a completely online company. There's no real store. And was just hanging out so much that they're like, do you want to work here? And he's like, yes, purpose. Like, that was it. He was just sold. Now, the last 20% of the people that worked at this place were the queerest people ever. I mean, it was incredible. And I was scared because I'm a gay dude, and I was like, I'm going into the Lion's Den, Milwaukee, Oregon. Somebody's gonna say something mean to me. Like, not at all, not at all. Like I thought I was gonna stick out. Nope. Like there was like super fabulous gay dudes just like slinging military uniforms on sewing machines like a badass. The whole shipping and receiving part was just butch lesbians. They got it locked down. And trans people everywhere. I mean, like when I was at work, I was in a room with more trans people than I have ever been or ever will be. And I loved it. It was wonderful. And I was like, I was thinking I was gonna stick out. No, not at all. Like I could have been confused for the other groups to my shame, okay? And somehow, like, all 3 of these groups just, like, really worked well together. Who knew? I don't know. And I don't know why. I never asked. And to their credit, they worked really hard. Because, I mean, it was an immense amount. It was daunting. It was, like, full-time, like, sometimes 9, 10 hours a day, just, like, making these things. And they did everything, but their bread and butter was the ribbon rack. And us citizens, civilians, don't know what that is. But if you picture a military uniform in your mind, and like in the upper left chest, there's just this like thing, this block of color. Like, what is that? Turns out it means something. Who knew? Yeah. I mean, like people in the military, like they know, and like they love it. But basically, it is that soldier's resume. So like whatever it is what they did. And it's like all those rectangles of colors are actually very short ribbons that are wrapped around sticks, and then they're put together in a pattern, a very like military precision way. And it's like, because of this job, I could see your ribbon rack and be like, oh, well, I know where you went to basic training. I know where, like you got some accolades, and you went to Afghanistan, you went to Iraq, oh, you were in the Korean War, or like sometimes older vets will like get theirs updated and like, oh, you were in Vietnam. FYI, I hate all the Vietnam ribbons because they're really complicated. And so that, it's a code that because of this job, like I can read that code, and anybody in the military can read it, and it's like it's kind of like very like arrogant. It's kind of like this thing, to walk around. Anyway, so if you get any like achievements or you do anything new, you have to get your ribbon rack updated for the military ball, and it's this whole thing, and if it's not right, they just flip out. And when you get this job, you get placed in all these different departments, and I was placed in as a builder. I was a builder of the ribbon racks, and it was a more prestigious job than the average seasonal worker. Because, to actually like build these things, you do have to have a level of crafting skill. Like you have to be familiar with like scissors, like X-Acto knives, super glue, fabric glue, like all the attention to detail. Tweezers are your like go-to, okay? And I was like, I'm an artist, I did it. And I like took a lot of pride, and like my trainer was like, wow, this is really good. And my first ribbon rack, like she even showed it to the boss, and I was like, wow, I'm so good at this. And like they were like, oh, we keep like 2 or 3 seasonal workers every year. This could be you. You're good at this. And I was like, I don't want this job. And that was like, what? Does not compute. Like, I was like, no, this job sucks. Okay, like, this is hard, but I can do it. And I did do it. Like my friend, like if you didn't have the craft skills, then you have to be placed in a different department. My friend, he did not make the cut, and so he was stuck in ribbons. And so he's just folding ribbons like all day long, that's it. Fold a certain fold. And when he was getting trained, he finally did it right. And he was like, hey, trainer, how long have you worked here? And she's like, 2 years. And he's like, oh, have you worked in all the other departments? She's like, no, 2 years, ribbons, just folding ribbons, 8 hours a day for 2 years. That's real. But luckily, I was a builder, okay? So I was above those ribbon people. And and like you think, oh, just like you put in an order and it just like poops it out of a machine. Like no, like everything has to be done by hand, and like there's a whole department of people that are just prepping supplies, and then there's people who take the prep supplies and they put them together in the order, and then they send them to me, who's the builder, and then I put it and I send it to somebody who's in quality control, and they check it, and then they send it to somebody who's the second quality control to check it, and then it goes to shipping and receiving. I mean, it's this whole very complicated process. And about a weekend, I pretty much master ribbon rack building. Okay, hold your applause. And I started to kind of like want something more. I was like, I need more out of this experience. And we'd start work very early in the morning, like 6:30 on Mondays, 7:30 every other day. And so I just like got into this habit of going to work, and like right before I walked into work in my car, my Honda Civic, I would just eat a marijuana edible. And it was fantastic, okay? And if if you're familiar with marijuana edibles, there's this kind of like wonderful time travel-y sort of effect, where you could go a whole day, I'd be like driving home at like 3 or 4 o'clock and be like, did that whole 9-hour shift even happen? Well. And it was just great. And so I mastered the ribbon rack. I mastered that routine of just marijuana edibles, and just like a solid month of just like, that's what I did. 7:30, boop, gone, You just go in legit, and then the roller coaster is started. You can't stop it. And it was great, like a month deep, totally into this, got this down. But the thing that I did not master was the shelves, okay? Because this is like 2 or 3 football field long warehouses, and there's just more stuff than you could, like, whatever you think it is, double it by 5, okay? Like, that's how much there is, the shelves. And every department has a shelf, and I just like couldn't get the shelves, like, where do I take things, where do I put things, and they all mean something, like top shelf, middle shelf, on the right is wet glue, on the left is dry glue. Like, it was just, couldn't get it. And my whole life, I've had like some mild dyslexia, because that's how it works, and never had a problem with it, never was embarrassed, it never affected my life, but I was just like kept making these shelving mistakes of grabbing from the wrong shelf or putting on the wrong shelf, and I just was like, well, it's my dyslexia, whatever, mazel tov, okay, it's cool. Until one day, I finish a ribbon rack, and I go and I put it on the shelf, and I go back to my desk, and I start to make a second ribbon rack, and my boss comes over, who was ex-military category, and was like kind of mean to me a lot, and was just like, hey man, you put this on the wrong shelf. Okay, I need you to put it on the right shelf. It's over here, come on, like, you did it again, okay, please. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, totally sorry. And I finish my second ribbon rack, and I'm like, okay, just don't, you got this. You just put it on the right shelf. And I go over there, put it on the shelf, get back to my desk, and right away, my supervisor's like, dude, you put it on the wrong shelf again. What's wrong with, like, okay, like, I really need you to put it on this right shelf. It's over here, okay, are you cool? I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry, whatever, He leaves. And then I'm, like, building my third ribbon rack, and it's, like, this timer of, like, don't finish because you're going to put it on the wrong shelf. Like, don't do it. And I'm, like, asking my buddy, where's the right shelf? And he's seasonal. He doesn't know. And I'm like, like, and I'm, like, I'm done. And I'm, like, going to the shelf. I'm like, I'm sure this is the one. This is the right shelf. And I put it down. Of course it's not right. And, like, my manager is on me right away. He was like, man, I am having like, what is wrong? Like, I told you to put it on the right shelf. And he looked at me like I was the dumbest person in Milwaukee, Oregon. And to his credit, at 9:30 in the morning that day, I was just high out of my mind. And I was like more high in that moment than I would be all day. And I was just like, I have no answer for you. And I just felt I felt stupid. I felt ashamed, and I was like tripping on it all day long, and like I went home and I was feeling bad, and I was like, this is the first time in my life where I actually questioned myself. I was like, did I make all those mistakes because I was high? No. Maybe. No. Yes. And I was like, I gotta stop. Do I have a problem? Like, what? No. Stop. And so I was like, the next day, clean, just no edible in the morning. And it sucked. Not fun. But I did it, and I didn't have any marijuana edibles for a whole week. And I still made shelving mistakes. I still made them. And my manager still looked at me like I was completely stupid. And I was just going home, and I was like, you know what? I would rather be high out of my mind and looked on as stupid than to do this job sober. And I got back on the bandwagon, folks. And this is really a call to action. You got a shitty job, get some edibles and go to work. That's all I'm saying, okay? And I had this attitude of this is what $12 an hour will buy you, okay? You're gonna get me, who's good at crafts, and at some point I'm just gonna be really fucking high. That's what you get. That's what your money will buy you for $12 an hour. And I was just about to finish that job, and I actually got the phone call that I got hired for another actual real big boy job outside of the education, the job that I really wanted, and I quit that day, and so now I have a whole new career, and everything is going well. So thank you very much.